morning. Welcome. Thank you for making it through the rain so early. My name's Lisa Perrin. I am CEO of Creative Networks for the Endemol Shine Group. You may know us. We're a very large production company. And I'm responsible for boosting the pipeline in scripted and non-scripted across the world, actually. And I'm really glad to have here this morning a panel, and we're going to discuss in this Trends and Insights thing about talent, which is a key issue, I know, for lots of you. So we have Jennifer O'Connell. Welcome, Jen. She's the Executive Vice President and Head of Worldwide Alternative Programming at Lionsgate. Dave Clarke, EVP of Content at Atrium TV. Javier Méndez Zori, who's Head of Content at Mediapro. And John Pollak, who's the President of Worldwide Television at Electus International. Hello. Thank you for coming. Can you just briefly tell the audience what you all do?
Okay, brief. So I oversee the alternative programming at Lionsgate TV, and we have a number of production companies that we have deals with. We are in business across the board at all kinds of platforms, from linear TV, network, cable, and streamers. We recently announced a couple of really exciting deals, one with 3 Arts Management, speaking to talent, and UMG Universal Media Group, so work closely with those companies as well as others. Thank you for having me.
No, it's good. Nice to hear it.
Morning, Lisa. I work for DRG and Atrium, both of which are companies owned by the Nordic Entertainment Group, but we're based in London, and it's my job to find content, both scripted and unscripted, for DRG to distribute, and to find and develop projects for Atrium to present to its club members for production. And it's a high-end drama commissioning club, of which more later.
Javier.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us. In Mediapro, we produce content, either scripted or non-scripted, so I supervise the content division. There are 2 more divisions focused on sports and production services. So on the production content, we produce films, scripted and non-scripted content, basically in Spain and North America, even though we also have offices in the UK, France, and across the world.
And I'm John Pollak, President of Television at Electus. Electus is a production company that works in both scripted and unscripted, digital and management. We do Running Wild with Bear Grylls on the unscripted side, Jane the Virgin, Marco Polo on the scripted side. We have College Humor, which is a prolific digital platform, as well as ownership in Artists First, which is a management company.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, this panel is really about talent, on screen and off screen. Actors, presenters, writers, producers, directors, all the creative community. I think it's about how we are working with talent to secure them, maintain our relationships, and how you develop and innovate and create and deliver great content and IP. And we know that with the arrival of the SVODs, it's really opened out the playing field in terms of content and how hard it is to keep these talents in these times. Streaming generation, I think, has seen a real overhaul when it comes to creative relationships and co-pros and content sharing and how we divvy up rights, etc. And I think it's happening very quickly, and I think it's evolving very quickly. So we're going to talk about some of those challenges that we all face in all of our markets. And with that in mind, I guess it's more prevalent in these markets, but are broadcasters and buyers insisting on talent becoming part of the package to get a commission? John and Jen, I guess in the States, are you finding that a real issue for you? Jen, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You know, it's interesting having a big name attached, a celebrity, an actor, athlete, is key. And I think that what's changed, and you know, I'm sure you'll agree with this, these talented people have to actually be on camera now. It used to be a couple years ago you could walk in the room with you know, an amazing piece of talent who was willing to promote the show, and that was good enough. But these days, huge names are willing to host shows, to participate in shows, and so the bar just continues to rise. So there's a real commitment that they have to give. We recently launched a show with Facebook with Kim Kardashian as an executive producer, but it was very clear that she had to be involved and wanted to be. Thankfully, otherwise, I don't think it would have worked. She not only started the pilot episode to get us off the ground, helped us bring in talent to also participate in the show, and her social media reach is ginormous. And so, especially to a place like Facebook, that made a lot of sense. But there's a lot that you can't just walk someone in the door and say, look who we have. You have to actually get involved.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We've seen a transformation in terms of how talent has been brought together as a package. I think initially, as Jen said, it was just walking into the room with a big name would get a show sold. I think for a network executive, it was their way of saying to their bosses, look, I have a big name, they'll promote, this is foolproof, we'll at least have a chance of success. It's then moved into big name that's on screen. Absolutely agree that that's key at this point. But then it's further evolving a bit now to the talent that's on board needs to be talent that is organic, I think, to the content. And, we do Running Wild with Bear Grylls. I mean, he's obviously a big talent in the wild. That's what he does well. I was reading what Universal Alternative Studios has done with Dwayne Johnson on Titan Games and Ellen on the Game of Games. And those are people, when you think of dance, you think of J-Lo, World of Dance, or Game, you think of Ellen, or those are so incredibly important, having those kind of celebrities, because not only does it cut through with the broadcasters, but I think it definitely cuts through with the audience as well.
Should we have a quick look at your clip?
Sure, thanks.
Should we play tape?
Zoe Saldana.
Where's Montana? Yeah, Harris.
I'm David Foster.
Hey guys!
My kids are going to have an earbud in my ear. They're going to be telling me what to say. Pray for me.
Let's go full diva, Mom. Destroy that table. Just destroy it. Oh my god. Which bark sounds more weird? Meow. Meow. Or ruff ruff. Ruff ruff. Say you don't wipe your butt.
Don't wipe my butt.
You don't?
My sons do it for me.
Oh, hey,
That looks really fun. Dave, Javier, I mean, obviously, are you facing the same challenges across Europe and EMEA?
Absolutely, yeah. The talent element is, of course, critical, and not only is it about ensuring a high-quality product, but it's about commissioners and people who are paying for those shows reducing their risk as well, and probably enabling them to blame someone else if it goes wrong, which we all like to do. But for DRG and for Atrium, it's absolutely about using talent at the earliest possible moment and engaging them in the process at the earliest possible moment. And that can be through development deals, or in the case of DRG, a variety of first-look deals with British producers, both scripted and unscripted. Just because it's, as I say, it's critical. And whilst the UK market is slightly less talent-centric in terms of the broadcast marketplace, it's not as reliant on it. It's becoming more and more prevalent, and it's a different sort of culture in the UK, but certainly it's becoming more Americanized, if you like.
And Javier, I know non-English language, scripted particularly, is getting more and more popular. Are you finding it a challenge in Spain as well?
Oh yeah, it's really a challenge. I think we're facing kind of a tricky situation where our main clients, they are becoming also our competitors for fighting for the same talent. So there's a challenge there to attract the best talent, especially on the scripted side. Also, at the same time, we should be able to identify new talent, especially on the digital side. I think people of my age, we're familiar to identify the celebrities on media, and this kind of. But there is another world on the digital side where I think something's happening there. So we should be able to find these new people who have a lot of talent, and we should be able to bring it to the table and convince our clients that these guys are really good.
Dave, How do you go about securing big name talent? Do you find the massive paychecks of Netflix and Amazon are sort of making it harder to demand people's loyalty, or do you think it's more about creative freedom?
Yeah, well, it depends on the talent in question. Certainly, it's about creating an environment for them where they're comfortable working, and if you do that, then you stand as good a chance as any that they will stick with you, and you want to maintain that. But often, yeah, big blockbuster checks will talk, and talent will therefore potentially walk. But that's fine. But not everyone wants to do that, and with the more engaging culture that you and we at DRG and Atrium try to create, we hope that they enjoy the process and want to stay. But there's not a lot we can do, any of us really, about matching the checks that the globals can offer. All we can do is find the right people that fit culturally with us, and some people will not fit, and you let them go and be successful elsewhere, and that's fine. But the people that you want to work with, you want to build a relationship with, and hopefully that will keep them sticking around and coming back to you again and again.
John, are you finding that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, when you deal with the streamers, they absolutely are writing the big checks. But for us as hands-on producers, it's much more about the partnership. And I think what we also want to keep in mind for us is that it's not always the on-screen talent that's important. It's the behind-the-camera talent as well. We've partnered up with Live Nation on a music show, and of course they bring the on-screen talent to the table, which is incredibly helpful, but Live Nation themselves is talent. And that's not something the streamers or even a major network can buy into. That's a partner that, because of our relationships, we've been able to partner up with. And I think that goes a long way in terms of the development process, the selling process, but then, of course, the marketing process after that.
And it's about developing new talent as well. I mean, Javier, you touched on it a bit there. Jen, is that Lionsgate committed to developing new talent, in scripted and non-scripted, and that's writers, producers, and bringing them forward?
Absolutely. I think that there are a lot of showrunners out there who are super experienced and have watched companies that they've worked for build and, make a lot and then sell and really cash out and have a good time. And I think that, there are a lot of really talented people who are looking for that chance. And so we're happy to help them find, their feet in that way and be their support system as they try to follow in those footsteps. And, as we all know, good ideas come from everywhere. So we're constantly looking for talent who might not have a ton of experience but have great ideas. And then we have the capability to either, support them either with our own internal staff or partner them with another production company we have on board. But I think it's, it's a mix. It's a mix of finding people who you can count on, who have a great track record, as well as finding who are those new voices and giving them a big shot.
And Dave, I know that's something you're trying to do with Atrium in terms. Do you want to explain the model that you're pursuing?
Yeah. So Atrium is a club, a coalition, if you like, of globally placed, mostly SVOD and OTT players from around the world. We currently have 18 club members spanning about 50 territories and something like 50 million, representing about 50 million subscribers. So we have a club member in each different territory around the world. For example, Viaplay in Scandinavia, Deutsche Telekom in Germany, Orange in France, BT in the UK, etc., and so on. And the plan is that Atrium centrally selects and develops projects that it knows the SVODs in these regions want and need. We then arrange for them to be presented to the club members twice a year and go about trying to finance them from within the club. The creative challenge there is that the dynamic, if you like, for the SVODs, they are all facing, and these are all individuals, they're not the globals. They're often backed by local telcos or are offshoots of existing successful businesses, but they're all suffering from the global power and budgets of the Netflixes and Amazons. So we have to bring them high-end projects with great talent that can sit on a billboard in Stockholm as much as it can in Berlin or in London, which is not as hard as it may seem. It helps when you've got Sir Howard Stringer as your chairman, the former boss of Sony and CBS. But what it means is we need to, as we were saying earlier, get to the talent earlier. One of the projects, we just did our third pitch to the club members on Sunday night, and one of the projects we pitched was from Joseph Fiennes, who's hot off his Emmy nomination for Handmaid's Tale. And he has been working very closely with a new writer on his take on Cyrano de Bergerac. And I think it's that pairing of, clearly a piece of global talent, but he and the writer just hit it off in such a fantastic way that he wanted to work with her. He wanted to hear and see her vision on the page for Cyrano. So I think that is, that's one of the ways in which we need to foster new talent, and it's a way that Atrium can do it as well, is by that mixture, that blend of establishment and new talent, and guiding them through the process. So we're very excited about that project.
No, it sounds really exciting. Should we just have a look at your promo? Play tape?
We're going to tell a great story.
This part of Quasimodo completely fascinates me.
This is like a sexier, more awesome, feminine energy Game of Thrones on steroids.
One, 406.
We care passionately. I do hope you join us on this adventure.
Wow, looks really impressive.
Yeah, there's some amazing talent in there. You saw Ava DuVernay with her project The Last Amazon. We have Peter Dinklage working with us on Quasimodo. There was Michael Hurst there, the creator of the Vikings and the Tudors. We had David Simon with his passion project A Dry Run. So Michael Douglas as well, working on Silo with Peter Horton, who's an extremely established US showrunner and writer who's just having great success with New Amsterdam in the US. So we're very lucky to be able to attract a lot of talent, and we're now extremely close to moving into production on our first two shows, Quasimodo and One Giant Leap. One Giant Leap, which is now being produced by Mike Medavoy, who is Hollywood royalty and has got a list of Oscars as long as your arm. So that's the sort of world we're living in these days, and to be fair, our club members demand this level of quality content, because if they don't have it, it's not going to cut through and it's not going to work.
So joining together is kind of a way of fighting the SVODs. Javier, so quickly, Javier, I know that you were talking about, and something that Mediapro are keen in doing, is developing new voices and new talent. It's something that you're really concentrating on.
Yeah, we think we need to find new voices. That's why we are creating our own school of showrunners inside Mediapro. We used to have a kind of a master in writing a long time ago. We are relaunching it now for especially focused on Spanish-speaking writers, because some of the Spanish-speaking writers now they are becoming kind of opera singers to find a slot to write a story. So we decided to create our own school. And hopefully we're going to find new writers. At the same time, we are creating a kind of incubator to identify digital talent, to give them the opportunity to produce in a more professional way, and the response has been massive, because they are eager to show the world their stories. At the same time, we keep taking care of the talent we are already working with, creating the right environment with them, to develop their ideas. On the unscripted side, we invested very heavily in development and creating our own pilots, because we have the advantage to have our own production facilities. So it's pretty easy for us create pilots and to bring it to the markets.
And do you think because you're developing that sort of talent, they remain loyal to you because you're growing them from the ground up? Is that something you're finding? I mean, it's hard. I mean, loyalty, as we've just spoken about, when there's big checks on the table, it's hard to kind of demand that loyalty. But do you feel that because you're growing them, because you're giving a chance, that they're likely to stick with you a little bit longer?
I think what they want they want things happen. I think that's the most important thing to show them that you are fighting for the project, that things are happening, that you are bringing the project to the best place, to be shown everywhere, to be watched for as many people as possible. As long as you are doing that you are giving them the tools to create the best content, they will be comfortable.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah,
I think
sure.
what you both have done so well over the years, and it's been happening for years, is the idea of talent behind the camera. Obviously, showrunners, directors, writers on the scripted side. We're seeing very much on the unscripted side that same mentality kind of take hold, especially as you see the rise of documentary series.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, John.
We work with Doug Prey. Our Artists First is our management company. They represent Doug Prey, who did Defiant Ones. Amazing series on HBO, but his track record now as a fantastic director with documentary series opens every door. And that's just something that I know the streamers, the broadcasters are looking for, and it's absolutely bleeding in a big way into the unscripted side. And we're excited about that because having more talent, not just on camera, but behind the scenes, really does help us get sales through.
Well, premium factual is of such a premium with the SVODs particularly. I was going to ask you, John, in terms of kind of developing shows now for the SVODs, is it very different?
I think it is, and we've talked about this before, in that, you know, if you went to a network, to a broadcaster and said, listen, I'm going to develop a show, you're going to pay for it, you're going to put it on, and you're going to get 50,000 viewers, they would kick me out the door immediately. But if I went to a streamer and said, I can guarantee you're going to get 50,000 new subscribers with this show, that would be something that they'd put on their platform. And that's just a different way of programming. And I think the days of producing for or developing for the masses, it obviously is still there and still relevant, but there's now this whole other world of micro development where you are targeting specific targets and genres that you have to be focusing on, because with the platforms such as the streamers, they have unlimited space. They can program and put content on in any genre that they want. And so as a developer, you have to be thinking not just big and global, but also to these micro-targeted genres as well.
Even though you don't know how many people are there, because
yeah, exactly, you don't have the data.
Numbers, so that's the main problem. You don't know how many people are watching your show.
Some of them you do, like Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's addicting. It's kind of scary. You wake up and your show launches, and you just watch view after view. You're like, come on, hit a million. Come on, like it's this kind of sick fascination that we have. But your point about subscribers is really true. It's not about the views, even though you want those numbers to be huge. It is about, turning that into subscribers, because that's really what's more meaningful.
Do you think the demand for talent in non-scripted now has rivaled scripted, John? Or getting there?
I think we're getting there. I don't think we're there yet, but we're definitely getting there. It's interesting. You can do a docu-series. There's a show on Netflix called Made in Mexico, which doesn't have any named talent, and it was getting, they had huge billboards in New York City marketing it. And that was a docu-series that a couple years ago, we as developers would said, we're not going to touch docu-series. There's no outlet for it anymore. But now there is. And so, yes, I think unscripted talent is heading that way, but we still have a long way to go until we get to the scripted side. I mean, when you think of Halle Berry, I remember when she was announcing that she was doing a CBS series, I was blown away. I mean, that was a mega movie star doing a TV series. Now, I mean, there's no longer delineation between TV and film. I think stars are stars across all platforms.
And Javier, just quickly, are you finding that happening in Spain? Because I know probably, as Dave touched on, it's not quite the same as it is in the States at the moment, I think. Particularly in the UK, on off-screen talent, on-screen talent with scripted, but in terms of writers and actors, but certainly in non-scripted, it's still not the kind of star showrunners as you have necessarily in the States. Are you finding that that's happening in Spain?
I think it's coming. It's not as big as it is in other countries because non-scripted is not so big for the moment in Spain, but I think it will come. I think we don't have many showrunners specialized on non-scripted. We have produced a show for Amazon 6 Dreams with Justin Wester as a showrunner. I think it's one of the new talents that is coming for that kind of product, but we are not there for the moment.
Should we have a quick look at your tape, Mediapro tape, and see what you're up to? Do you want to play tape? Lots of big co-pros. John, things are changing really fast, it feels to me. How do you think these things are going to evolve with talent?
In terms of what?
Well, in terms of working with the SVODs, how that's going to influence working with the network, and how you're going to have to package these packages up. Has it reached the top in terms of what talent are demanding, or do you think it's just going to carry on? I
think it's going to carry on, and I think we are getting. It's interesting when we develop, we're packaging. I mean, we're bringing so many different components to the table that we can. If it's talent, if it's brand, if it's a director, if it's international co-production money, if it's anything, we need to package in order to sell, and it feels like that's the way of television, at least in the U.S., and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I think there's an absolute need for broadcasters to be able to look to the entire package when they want to greenlight a series.
Do you agree, Jen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we are in the packaging business, and that you really can't walk in the door with just a great idea. Those days are over, and I don't know. I mean, we did just announce a show that did not have talent attached, but it was, it was a high concept live project, and actually having talent attached I don't think would have made a difference in that case, but I think that's a specialized case. I think more and more you're walking in the door with the great idea, the talent, whether it's hard to go in with a game show without a host attached. Jamie Foxx on Fox. Killed it for the rest of us. We have to keep up with that. That bar was set, and now it will continue.
That is amazing. I mean, I think every new game show has a giant celebrity host. I mean, the game show hosts of years past are no longer working. It's Jamie Foxx, it's Kevin Hart. I mean, the names are endless.
But is that realistic? With linear platforms' budgets, as we know, challenged, is it really realistic that you're going to have those type of names and that kind of budget?
I don't see it sustaining.
Ticket out. I mean, how is that sustainable?
I don't think it is. I mean, especially when you look at the ratings. And the ratings, it's not like they're getting giant ratings. It's just they're doing well. And if you're a broadcaster and you're paying Katy Perry or some other name, $20, $30 million a season, is it worth it? And I think people are going to have to take a hard look at that.
That's what I mean. Is it really sustainable? What do you think, Dave?
Probably not. But then they've got to re-inject and reinvigorate the the broadcast marketplace, and they can do that by reaching a mass audience, and only those networks can do that. And John said earlier, the impact, I think, of bringing a high-end talent package to Netflix or Amazon, and I don't mean to bash Netflix and Amazon, but I'm bashing Netflix and Amazon. If you bring them these projects, then there can be a sense that it's, your packaged project, which you've worked hard to do, will get dropped into this ocean of content that they have, and they might market it for a week and then it's gone. Whereas on a broadcast network, which is automatically in tens of millions of people's homes, you have a dialogue with your audience over a number of weeks when you're promoting it in a linear schedule. That is actually quite compelling to talent to know that they're going to be constantly in the cultural conversation, and that they need. I think we all need. You want validation, and you want that sort of return path of feedback of, oh, people are watching it, they're enjoying it, that's great. Which is something that's very difficult to get. You only get that from Netflix when you get recommissioned.
But I would argue, and obviously we make a number of productions for Netflix. Black Mirror being one, is that when you talk to Charlie Brooker, we're doing a show with Idris Elba at the moment, the freedom that the Netflix and the Amazons give the creatives in terms of, the lack of notes, the ability for them to see their vision, not only do they get paid very well, they're not doing it for free, but that sort of freedom, that's another reason why the SVODs, I think, are slightly killing it. With the talent, frankly.
They are, but then it's a fine line. Black Mirror is a great example of where it really, really works. But there are examples of shows where, people have written big checks for auteur, writer, director, producers, Baz Luhrmann, even Martin Scorsese on HBO, and they don't deliver, or they're not allowed, or they've been allowed to just have free reign, and it doesn't quite work, and then it sort of disappears and is never seen again. So it's a balance between getting the talent in and then giving them too much freedom to make something that maybe might not work.
I also think from a producer or talent standpoint, when it comes to the streamers, since they stack and drop all the episodes all at once, I know I don't have time to watch everything the minute it comes out. And so I think the whole point of content is you want people talking about it. And how many times have you said, oh, have you watched the new season of Black Mirror? No, I haven't watched it yet. Don't talk about it. That's counterintuitive to what programming is. You want people talking about it. So that's one thing that always kind of sticks with me is would Game of Thrones has been as successful if it had been on Netflix? I don't know. Because every week people were going online. They had theories. They were talking about it. If that all came out at once, people would have said, oh, I haven't finished the whole season. Don't talk about it yet.
Those are fighting words. I'm like a major binger, so I love it. But I will say, from my perspective, when it comes to the broadcast networks, I think, and kind of maintaining, how are they going to continue to be able to pay these big, talented people? Only some of the networks really know how to market. And I think that those are the networks that will continue to pay those big bucks because they're also willing to invest in that marketing push. And without it, a big name doesn't necessarily mean big ratings, but if you kind of insist on the audience because you're really getting in their faces, those are the places I think that will continue to, look at NBC. They continue time and time again to make hits because they know where, what the lead-in is, how to place it, and then they just market it like crazy.
Paul Telegdi is a master at launching new shows, and dealing with talent, and that's undisputable. Javier, how do you think it's going to change in Spain and Europe in terms of the way the SVODs are playing with the talent, in terms of the talents evolving, in the way that you're having to change the way that you interact with your on-screen and off-screen talent?
I think it's gonna get worse because it's going to be more and more difficult to attract the talent. As I said before, our main client is becoming also a competitor. They are trying to sign exclusive deals with the best talent. I think the best way to compete is to offer them the possibility to work with everybody rather than be focused on just one client. I think regarding what you mentioned before about the freedom, I think that could be a debate because I think I'm sure it's not the same when they are negotiating, for example, with Sonda Rhimes or people like that. when you compare with another creator. And at the same time, I think for them, for a creator, it's a temptation to see the possibility to release a show globally, even though they don't know how many people are watching the show. But it's a huge temptation that their show is going to be available in 150 territories. Again, even though they don't know a number, which is something I think we should be concerned, as producers, because we go blind to negotiate with this platform. At some point, we will need to know that numbers in order to try to even to improve the content, because we are completely blind and we just have the intuition that certain things they're gonna work, or the algorithm is going to decide if this actor is gonna work or this story is gonna work, or this for a certain niche or this community. So it's gonna be really a big challenge to attract this new the talent, to attract the talent, to retain the talent, and to create and identify new talent.
It does feel like that sort of global marketplace now, it means that talent can be mined for the SVODs and actually then discovered, and then sort of the fight starts with the linear platforms in those territories as well across the world. And it feels like Europe, and I don't know, Dave, Javier, if you agree, is catching up very quickly with the States in terms of the packaging. I know some of the deals that we're being asked to do with the networks in the UK and with France and Spain, for example, on non-scripted shows, sounds very similar to yours, to your world.
Yeah, I think so. But as I say, it's not quite there yet in the UK. With scripted, again, it's slightly different. I think with scripted, there's more flexibility to bring new talent to the table, because I think particularly with writers, because a good script can be written by anyone and then you can package around it. I think if the sort of comparison with unscripted is a great unscripted show idea, which is more difficult to realise, as it were, on the page, where you really do need to build a package of producer and on-screen talent around it. Whereas with scripted, I think it's much more, you can nurture writing talent and prove that objectively to a commissioner by showing them the script and then giving them the comfort that a great producer or a great director is going to work with that writer to realise it.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got a few minutes left. I don't know if there's anybody from the floor that's got a burning question you want to ask the panel. Please put your hand up and shout away. I think there's roving mics around. Does anybody wish to ask a question? Anybody? A few seconds left. Oh, there is a lady there. Shout away.
Sorry, hi. Do you feel content creation will change a little bit with the rises of Facebook Watch, Snapchat, longer formats, etc.? How do you feel about that? And do you feel the need to change the way you're working with creative people and writers and talents?
Do you want to ask that, Jen?
Yeah, it's interesting. We so when we've taken out shows, concepts, and we've actually blanketed the marketplace if it's appropriate. And so that means I'm pitching the same thing maybe to a streamer that I am to, and maybe it's more short form like a Facebook, as well as, cable and network. And we do have to think about how we will adapt that pitch, because some of those places do have shorter running times. So we need to make sure if we're going to do, we have Kevin Hart's What the Fit on YouTube, and those are like 13-minute episodes. The Facebook episodes are 13 to 15 minutes. And so we really do need to think about how are we going to make that the best short episode versus a longer one. So it definitely has affected the way we think. We also have ideas that we come up with or find and think, oh, that's not really big enough for, maybe a linear platform, but wow, it would be so impactful. It's great because it feels like bigger than a segment, but not quite a show, really entertaining. So we will kind of go down a development path, strictly for particular streamers.
John, when you're dealing with talent, do they see the platforms like Facebook and YouTube as equal as some of the linear broadcasters? Are they happy to work on them?
Yeah, I think they are. And we were at dinner last night, and somebody was talking about the idea of micro audiences and about influencers and people who have their own YouTube page, and they're going direct to their viewers, to their fans. And that's, I think when it comes to talent, we can't forget about them, because they have direct access to their fan base. And we see it with Twitter. It's so important when we think of development. It's not just about packaging and developing for a big network, for a big streamer, but how do we partner up with somebody who has direct access to their fans? Because that's really where that next phase can potentially go. If 5 years ago we were focusing on getting 5 million viewers, if now we're worrying about getting 50,000 subscribers, maybe we're going to be looking for 5,000 fans directly, but it's just going to get more and more targeted. And I think when it comes to talent, it's about finding those people who have direct access, who can really engage and interact and connect with that fan base.
Javier?
I think it's a very interesting question, because I think that with these new platforms like Facebook or Snapchat or whatever, we need to make the creators think in a different way. I mean, the narrative and the storytelling should be completely different. So people 40 years old or above, I think it's difficult to change their mind to the way they have been working the last 25 years. So they need to think in a different way, and we need to find new young talent who thinks with that in mind. With these short form formats, which is completely different. The way we have been telling the story is completely different, even though the topics are the same, but the way we need to tell the story is completely different.
Brilliant. Is there any more questions? Any more? Any more from anybody? Obviously not. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for coming on this wet and windy morning. It's great. And thank you to the panel, to Jen, Dave, Javier, and JP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.